What's up? This is Brandon London, and you're listening to the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. You hear that? The Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. Let's go, Giants.
Good evening and welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast in association with Andy's Man Club. It's okay to talk, lads. Apologies for being slightly late. There is a little bit of news breaking at the moment. We'll bring you that shortly. This evening we are 75% British, 25% Irish, but as always, absolutely still 100% Giants. It's a full house as well this evening. Fantastic. As we look back on Sunday night football against the Bills in what was a game that not really anyone expected. With the Giants being the biggest underdog in the league so far this season. I think they were a 15-point underdog as kickoff came. But it came down to the very last play. One which we'll no doubt be talking about over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. Obviously, 1 and 5 lads should have been 2 and 4. How are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I can't remember last time it was all 4 of us. I don't know if that's just more age getting worse or my memory. But yeah, it's good to have all 4 of us back on. A couple of minutes late as well because I was getting a hot drink, so I offer my apologies to that as well. So I hope you guys are also good too.
Yeah, it's good to be back on. I'm so glad. I saw in the comments down there saying 4 of us on is a privilege. Yes, it is. You've got 4 awesome dudes on. Going to talk some Giants football. As Dan alluded to, is a game that we might have won, should have won, could have won. I mean, we'll get into the details of that, but it's just so good to be here on what is official Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast and New York Giants Fans UK Meetup Week, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. So I can't wait to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
It's a big week, isn't it? It's one of the big weeks for us. I'm looking forward to it. But anybody that doesn't know, I've got an absolutely shafted shoulder at the moment, and I've got a lovely MRI scan at 7:45 in the morning on Sunday. So it's going to be a long old day for me, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of booze in the evening that will sacrifice the painkillers, so I don't have to take those. Yeah, it's been an interesting weekend. It's strange because we've got so much to talk about, and it's still a loss. Like, you know, sometimes we've had to flesh it out a little bit because we're so disappointed and don't want to, you know, put the dagger into the heart too much. But there's a lot to get through this week.
Certainly is. And I mean, the fact that this isn't therapy session number 4 says a lot, I think. You know, like I said at the start, it's a game we could have and probably should have won. It was there for the taking. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But there's quite a lot of positives to come out of Sunday, I thought. So we'll get into them shortly as well. Now, as Kevin mentioned, coming up in just 5 short days' time, we'll all be making our way to the Sports Bar and Grill at Marylebone Station for our first meet-up of the season alongside the New York Giants Fans UK as we take on the Washington Commanders on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Remember, if you plan on coming along, drop a comment on our X post. Don't forget to wear your legacy jersey either, as Kev will buy you a drink of your choosing. Once you turn up, you'll be entered into a draw to win either some podcast merch or a voucher to use on usasports.co.uk. Now, don't forget to use our discount code Big Blue to get yourself 15% off your order when you use that voucher or for any other purchases you make on that site as well. Remember, that's 15% off usasports.co.uk using the code Big Blue. All right, now, producer Craig, we were on a little bit late. We've got a little bit of breaking news. So what's going on?
Love using that drop. It's so pointless, but I absolutely love it. Right, so two signings to the Giants squad that have literally broke within the last 10 minutes as we were coming on air. First one came out from the Schultz report that the New York Giants have signed offensive tackle Tyree Phillips from the Eagles practice squad. Phillips started 5 games for the Giants last season and was obviously heavily involved during the pre-season before he was cut and then subsequently signed to the Eagles practice squad. So it's nice to have him back. And then mere minutes after that, Mike Garafolo said that the Giants are signing offensive tackle Josh Miles off the Falcons practice squad. Miles was a 7th-round pick of the Cardinals back in 2019 and has appeared in 17 games over 3 seasons with them. However, I don't think he's taken that many snaps. I think it's only sort of 26 to 29 snaps. So 17 games, but not a massive snap count. Any thoughts on those, boys? Nice to have Tyree Phillips back.
Yes, I'll go then. I was sort of waiting there for the 2 big boys to go, Shane and Dan. But I mean, it is good. I think he's got experience. He knows the offense. He's got familiarity with the offensive line players as well. When he came in last season, he more than held his own. And with Andrew Thomas's sort of injury nagging and sort of like being drawn out and being longer than anyone anticipated, I think he'll definitely come in and sort of either get cover for the tackle spot on both sides, but push to start while Andrew Thomas gets himself full recovery.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't answer then because I thought Craig said, "What do you reckon about that, Kev?" But that's just me hearing things. To be honest, we know Tyree Phillips. He filled in well last year, and the other guy whose name eludes me already shows how much attention I'm paying.
Josh Miles.
Josh Miles. There we go. It just adds that little bit of depth onto the line that we're clearly struggling with. And now you mentioned that thing about Andrew Thomas with his injury sort of recovery going on and on and on. Why wasn't he put on the injury reserve in the first place? If they knew his recovery was going to be at least 4 weeks, why didn't they just put him on IR? And then we could have brought someone in sooner, rather than wait. And now all of a sudden we're 6 weeks into the season. We've not got our starting left tackle, and he's probably not going to be good to go this week. Looking likely to go against the Jets next weekend, but who knows yet? It's sort of still up in the air a bit. So it's a little bit of a concern as to why he wasn't put on the IR. But yeah, 2 good additions to the offensive line. I think we need them. Need that depth for sure. So yeah, can't complain really. What do you reckon, Shane?
Yeah, I think the Tyree Phillips one, it's kind of been a case of like what's took so long, really. I mean, you think that he knows the system, he plays at a position we are struggling with. I mean, Evan Neal's had his struggles, and he's a player who, when he played last season at times, he did okay. Look, I'm not going to say he impressed, but he was serviceable. So, I'm actually surprised it took so long for the issue to happen with Azudu, which kind of begs the question: is it going to be a case of, is Tyree Phillips coming in for depth, or is he coming in to play that left tackle so Justin Pugh can go back to playing the guard position? That'll be interesting and one to watch. And Josh Miles, he was 7th round draft pick out of Morgan State Bears. I know kind of very little about him, only that he's played tackle in the NFL throughout his career. He's not one of these who's kind of been plugged in at guard and that. But he's listed at 325 pounds, 6'5". So he's a little bit bigger than me. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on.
just a little bit. I mean, did you say Morgan State Bears?
Yeah,
that sounds like you've made a name. That sounds like you've made a name up there, Shane. I'm not gonna lie.
So there's another question just there. We might as well get to it now while we're talking offensive line. Do we wait and let Thomas sit the season to avoid any further worse damage? We're hardly contenders. That is a bold question.
I think until we do. If we do become contenders, then yeah, why not? Why make it worse?
I wonder if that's what they've been doing the last couple of weeks, to be honest. I was listening to Talking Giants a couple of weeks ago, and Justin made a good point saying it's a hamstring for an offensive lineman. Offensive linemen don't need hamstrings the way that you kind of pass rushers do and your wide receivers do and your running backs do. So like he kind of made the point of what if I can't remember, I don't want to quote him exactly, but he was kind of alluding to the point of what if they're just shutting him down a little bit sooner and letting him fully repair. Like let's say if we had a game, let's say we were playing the Bills this past weekend and it was to get into the playoffs. Thomas plays that game. hands down, without a question. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it maybe kind of see where we're at once we've got like the likes of the Washington Raiders, Jets games out the way. If we're 7-1, then 8-1, whatever it might be, yeah, just shoot him down for the season. Why you just paid him a large sum of money? He's a player who's had a couple of niggling injuries over the last couple of years. Why get him worse for no reason whatsoever, for no benefit?
I think I wouldn't shut him down for the season because I still think he needs to play. I mean, I would keep him off until you're 100% satisfied that he is good to go and he's 100%. I wouldn't rush him back. But I do think it's still such a long season. There's still so many long games ahead. And when Daniel Jones comes back, he still needs protecting because he hasn't been protected that well, to be honest. And he is by far the best lineman we have. So for the sake of Daniel Jones's career and production and to stop him sort of seeing ghosts and have some confidence in his blind side, I'd bring Thomas back as soon as he is 100% fit and you know that it's not going to be a niggly injury for him.
Just before we move on, just to sort of kind of touch on those two signings, I think those two signings are a direct impact of what's happened to Azudu as opposed to what's happening with Thomas. I think if they were a direct impact of the Thomas injury, we would have seen those signings made a lot earlier. And this is purely because Azudu limped off and did not look in a good way at all. So evidently,
it was kind of a nothing injury as well, wasn't it? It didn't really look like anything really happened. It just sort of happened.
I think he left in a walking boot as well. I'm sure I read that somewhere.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's obviously a direct impact from that, and the fact that clearly we just don't have anyone. I mean, we're going to get into it in a minute, but when the man who's supposed to be playing 25 snaps, plays 77 snaps, and ends up
in the wrong position.
In the wrong position, a position he hasn't played since his rookie year, where he didn't play a lot of. I think there's a problem, and they've obviously identified that.
But just to add to what you said there, Craig, I know we haven't had the details of it yet, but they said at the time that Azudu went out with turf toe, and now it depends on what type of grade of turf toe it is. Like if it's only a grade 2 strain, it could be 2 to 4 weeks we could be without him. If it's a grade 3 or more, it could be done for 2 to 6 months. So obviously we were still waiting on the prognosis and the actual full details of what's happening. But if it is 2 to 4 weeks, we still needed to bring in cover. So you're 100% right that this is more reactionary to that than the Thomas injury.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll play out this week, and we'll see what happens sort of as the days go by as we move close to Sunday. But yeah, it's two good new depth pieces on the offensive line. Go, Craig. Anything else? Any more breaking news?
No, but Bobby Skinner's just said we've now got 11 offensive linemen on the roster, and that doesn't include Justin Pugh. So someone's going to get cut or go into IR, and I think that's a given.
Yeah. We'll keep our eyes open for that. If any news of that comes through whilst we're on air, and if it does, we'll bring it to you straight away. Right, on to the game then. A game that, like I said, was there for the taking. It was frustrating, but at the same time, unsurprising that we didn't come out of Buffalo with the win. A game that we should have won. Daniel Jones obviously was ruled out with his neck injury. So Tyrod Taylor got his revenge game and he got the start. I don't know about you guys, but I thought offensively we looked a bit more relaxed with him under center. And our defense played absolutely lights out, and full credit to Wink and full credit to them as a unit. I just thought across the 60 minutes of the game they were fantastic, and that's what we really, really need to see out of the defense. But again, the offense struggled to score points. Producer Craig, where do we lose the game?
I don't think we lost the game. I think it was potentially cost, but we'll get into that later. The refs decided that they weren't allowed. The refs decided that they weren't allowed to call two defensive pass interference back to back. So with no time on the clock, the Giants simply ran out of time, despite their great field position at the end of the game. And unfortunately, that now condemns the Giants to a fourth straight loss, as well as God knows how many quarters it's been since we last scored an offensive touchdown.
12.
There we go. Thank you, Dan. Man alive, that's
That's
painful,
depressing.
isn't it? It is
That's
depressing.
hard.
It,
3-4 games.
Brilliant. But there were positives. So, Kev, do you want to go through those? Give us the rundown on the good things, and there were a fair few.
There were. I mean, obviously, we'll talk about the game holistically as well, but like just talking about some of the positive takeaway from the game. I mean, it was a better performance from the offense, as Dan alluded to as well. You know, Tyrod Taylor came in for the injured Daniel Jones. It was his first start since December 21. He completed 2/3 of his passes. You know, on Sunday he went for 200 yards. There's a few nice plays in there, especially 2 slot feeds to Slayton. Plus, obviously, with his elusiveness, he was able to escape a couple of sacks, you know, and turn them into positive plays. And also, speaking of Slayton, you know, and despite that one drop, which to be fair was a difficult pass, you know, it was a difficult one to bring in, but it was makeable. So you kind of want to see your good players holding on to those, and the top receivers kind of bring those in, I think. He had those 2 nice catches on the feeds for 30+ yards. So you like seeing that. You know, we don't really get many explosive plays. You know, it's normally a little bit of dink and dunk, and that was very much like this in this game as well. You know, it wasn't all good for Taylor though, but I think Shane will cover some of that in the bad, so I'll leave that for him. But the makeshift offensive line, you know, it was up and down. I mean, you know, we have to give a massive shout out to Justin Pugh. You know. Especially with his intro, which is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen it, just go and search for it. Like, you know, as the names come up and they give their name and what college they went to, and Justin Pugh was just, you know, honest and straight up. Justin Pugh, straight off the couch. Because we only signed him last week, and for him to come in and play left guard, you know, where he only was expecting to get 20-odd snaps, was what he was expecting to get sort of eased into this game. And he was thrust into the game and played something like 60, 70 snaps. And also after playing well at guard as well. He played, he had a first couple of series, he looked like really good at guard and was like, okay, this is lovely. He's coming in, he's holding his own. Unfortunately, the incident with Zudu, and he had to kick out to left tackle. You know, in the first couple of drives, you know, he was finding his feet. He got beat quite easily to begin with. But then I thought he really did find his feet and was solid there and really, you know, give a really good showing of himself. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson had another good game. You know, he went for 8 receptions off 8 targets for 62 yards. You know, at 7.8 yards per reception. And also Darren Waller, you know, he had no one was having a fantastic game, you know, for our offense, but it's good to see positive signs. And Darren Waller had a few nice pickups over the middle. And one of the highlights for me as well was Barkley. Seeing Barkley back, you know, he had an impressive 93 yards rushing. You know, he had a couple of classic Barkley runs, you know, but there was some really nice pull blocking. You know, some of the guards were coming out. You know, shout out to Glowinski as well. You know, he had some really nice pulls, you know, sealed off his man. And even in some of the runs, Waller and Hyatt were doing some really nice blocking work for him as well, you know. So it's really good to see him sort of like, you know, pull off some decent yardage, you know, and show some potential. He was a little bit hesitant, you know, but that's going to be the case coming back from an injury. But yeah, I mean, so those are kind of the positives that I pulled from it on the offensive side, you know. So there was some stuff there to sort of like some meat on the bones, you know, so hopefully something to go forward. Now, speaking about defense, I mean, I think the defense has started to play gradually well in a few games recently. This isn't just like a one-off. I think, you know, it was an absolute fantastic performance from the defense. They pretty much did everything right. I think the only blemish on the night was no sacks, but they were pressuring so much. So, you know, sacks don't tell all the story, but if you're getting enough pressure where you're stopping the quarterback making a good throw and getting an incomplete, all right, it's not a sack, but, you know, you're definitely doing your job. They just pressured him all night, which was so good to see, especially against one of the best offenses in football. They held him to 0 touchdowns in the first 3 quarters. Like, think about that. Like, you got Diggs, you've got what's his name, the other wide receiver. Drawing a blank now. No one to help.
Gabe Davies.
Gabe Davis. You know, you've got Kincaid and Knox, tight ends. Do you know what I mean? You know, this is a very good offense, and to hold them to no scores the first 3 quarters, I think, is phenomenal. Like, if I said to you before that the Bills would only score 14 points on the night, would you take that before the game? Like, of course you would. Like that, you know, it's a great stand by them. You know, they didn't allow him time in the pocket. He sort of was moving around the pocket, but moving into trouble. So, you know, it affected a lot of his throws, and he wasn't able to get into rhythm. And that was all on Wink, and that was all on the defense. And he didn't necessarily rush they didn't necessarily blitz that much. They just showed different types of pressures. And a massive shout out as well to Bobby O. I mean, Bobby Okereke, he had the best game as a Giant. He's been getting progressively better. Like, I think as he's been getting better, the whole defense is getting better. I think, was Steve Holtz saying, thought McFadden and Okereke starting looked like a strong pairing. And I 100% agree with that. Those two really, really stood out. And, could we have something here as a linebacker pairing? I mean, it's the best linebacking play that I've seen, to be honest, since supporting the Giants. And I know multiple people have put on social media it's the best linebacking game that they've seen since, I know, Antonio Pierce or someone like that. But what did he have? He had he had an interception. He had 9 tackles, 8 of them solo, 2 tackles for loss, a forced fumble. And then talking about Michael McFadden, he returned this week after being out injured. He was heavily involved. He had 3 pressures, 5 tackles, plus he was he was on the fumbles caused by Bobby Okereke. He was able to get down there and pick up the fumbles and recover it. And also he had an interception where Bobby got his hand out, got the ball popped up in the air and he came down with it. So those two working together, I think, if they could keep up this trajectory, I think we could have a real good pairing here. And then let's talk about the rookie, Deonte Banks. He continues to be a lockdown corner. He's come in as a first-round pick, and it's in this defense is so hard because you're left on island so much. But he was targeted 3 times. Diggs was targeted 3 times. Banks had him in coverage and didn't get a single reception on him. Like, that's Stephon Diggs, one of the elite receivers in this league, and he's going toe-to-toe with him. It's just fantastic. Like, someone else I want to talk about, Kayvon Thibodeau. He was a thorn in Allen's side all night, and despite not getting a sack, he was there with 6 pressures, all hurries. He and Dexter Lawrence, who had 3 pressures, were both like flustering Allen all evening. Like, it was really, really good to see getting some sort of pressure. Again, it would be nice to get some sacks in that sack column, though. But lastly, I just want to touch on the special teams as well. We're going to give a shout out to the Scottish duo. Graham Gano, absolute money. He's missed 1 or 2, but he is pretty much money. And Jamie Gillen, Gano made 3 of his attempts, and Gillen punted 4 times with 2 inside their 20, and the best net average this season with 49.8. So I think Gillen, we're starting to see him coming into his and get comfortable with his. And like softly punters and kickers as well, people have to remember, sometimes you don't see the best of them until their 30s. And Gillen's only like 26, I think, so he's still quite young, and he's still got time to grow. So kind of hope with Gano's mentorship that Gillen is starting to really find his feet now and start to be like the punter that obviously the special teams coach thinks he can be. But we come to the big one. I love this every week. I know 1 week we didn't do it, but with a much better showing this week, and the positives are there for the game. We didn't win, I know. We could have won. But, so the players of the game. I want to know you guys' players of the game. I'll start with mine. We all got to pick one. I went for Micah McFadden. I mean, I said all the stats before, his 5 tackles, solo, interception, his fumble recovery. But he also had a 87.9 PFF grade, which is an excellent grade over there as well. So I just think, he was all over the place. He was all over the place along with Bobby O. And I just really would love to see these two. I said it before, I'd love to see these two blossom into a real partnership now and a linebacker core we can trust on. So over to Dan. Who's your player of the game?
Great pick in Bobby Okereke there. Bobby Okereke, sorry, Michael McFadden. I think, just want to second that. Those 2 linebackers playing absolute lights out at the moment, so well done to them. My original pick was Bobby Okereke. Maybe that's what I was thinking. I don't know. Just an outstanding game from him. His place in the PFF Team of the Week is well deserved, and I believe one of the other 2 have picked him. Maybe spoiler, but I've gone for Justin straight off the couch pew. In what was his first game in a year since tearing his ACL and first game since returning to New York, he didn't set the world alight. Let's be honest, he didn't set the world alight. But the fact that he's been on the team for a week, he's been promoted from the practice squad, and then slots in as starting left guard against one of the best offenses and one of the best defenses in the league, in the Bills. They lead in the league in sacks, so his task was pretty damn tough, right? The fact that he slotted in at that left guard spot was truly remarkable, I thought. And what makes it even more remarkable is the fact that, like you said, the first two series, Azudu's in at left tackle. He then goes down injured, and he then plays the rest of the game at left tackle and fills in for Azudu. Plays all 77 offensive snaps. He's played 6 snaps in his pro career at left tackle before this game, and I thought he did absolutely stellar job. Granted, he obviously gave up the sack and he committed 2 false start penalties like quite soon after moving across. This guy's he's still learning the cadence. Come on, he's still he probably just guessing the snap count at times. And you don't forget as well, at guard you're looking at the ball. Tackle, you're looking at the guy in front of you because you got to set that edge. And I just thought he just had an absolutely stellar game. Like I said, after he had that shaky start, he settled in well, helped the offense come within 2 plays of winning this game because we didn't have one chance to win this game. We had 2. Had it not been for 2 very, very questionable calls at the 1-yard line, both in the first and second half. So yeah, Justin, hats off to you, mate. You had a fantastic game. And my player of the game. Craig, who got your vote?
I went for Wandale. I know that Kev went through the stats earlier. You can see them on screen, but for all the listeners, 8 targets, 8 receptions, 62 yards, 7.8 yards per reception. One reason and one reason only did Wandale stand out for me, and that was every time he got the ball, because he got the ball on a lot of short routes, which you would expect when you've got 62 yards on 8 receptions. They're never going to be massive plays. Every time he got the ball, regardless of whether he was facing towards the end zone or facing towards the quarterback, he always got a couple of extras. If it was him pushing himself backwards or making a cut and making a run. And that's what I want to see. I want to see players who aren't, and this isn't a knock on Paris Campbell, but he has done this a lot this season, catch the ball to the floor. Like, there's a time and a place when you want to secure the ball and make sure you definitely get the first down. And Wandale did this on one of his catches. Grab the ball down to the floor, get the first down, on we go. Absolutely fine with that. But when you're consistently looking at 3rd and long, sometimes the difference between going down and only picking up 3 or maybe pushing yourself backwards and picking up 6 is massive for an offense. And it opens up the playbook so much more. So I do think Wandale the last 2 weeks has probably been our best offensive weapon by far. And this is his 2nd year, and he missed a massive chunk of last season after he ended the
11
season.
Games?
So
10 games, 11 games.
And I just think he's horrifically overlooked in what's been a poor system. And it's just about time that we kind of give him his flowers, as they say. Right, Shane, last up.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. I do want to mention, I seen on Twitter, it made me laugh about Justin Pugh saying, look what happens when you get an offensive lineman that's not coached by Bobby Johnson, comes in and actually performs quite well. I was like, fair point. But obviously last week I didn't pick a player of the game. I said that I wasn't going to pick a player of the game until somebody performed to a level where I thought they deserved it. Bobby, I was clearly listening to the podcast, and I take no responsibility for his outstanding effort this past Sunday night. But I had to go with Bobby. I love me a linebacker. And to be honest, like me and Kev, we watched the game on a chat like this together, and both of us were praising Bobby O and McFadden. Like, we literally, like, at one point, it was kind of like they are literally yin and yang. Like, Bobby O's doing all this, and then McFadden's doing all the tidying up with like the fumble recovery and with the interception. That's something that you can't. You don't just walk onto the field and do it. There's got to be some sort of like anticipation there, which was great to see. But
chemistry.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we missed, especially at the linebacker position over the last few years. But Bobby O, for me, it was a real coming out game for him. I think he's steadily grown into his role, as Kev said, over the last few weeks, and he's becoming more familiar and comfortable now with Wink's system. And we started to see the Bobby O that we expected to be getting when we signed him in free agency back in March. played all 61 defensive snaps. That shows how important he was to the team. He led the D with 11 tackles. 2 of them were tackles for loss. He had 2 passes defended. One of them was tipped into the hands of McFadden, as Kevin mentioned earlier on, along with a forced fumble that he had, which again, McFadden was there to jump on. And he also had a QB hurry, and this is going to be a shout out to the team in general, but also he had 0 missed tackles, and as a team we only had 5 all week. Now when you think we've been seeing numbers like 15, 16 being put up, when you have 5 this week, that's a massive shout out to the defense in general, and it was great to see the defense jump up the way they did. But you know, Bobby O had that much of a standout game. I've heard rumours some people brought a jersey during the game for him. Like, I don't know how true that is, but you know, that just shows the kind of game that he had.
I am so much of an impulse buyer. I mean, we were there, we were talking about it, and I was at work, and I hope none of my managers are listening because I'm watching football on night shifts with Shane. But I was like, well, I'm getting it. I didn't know what legacy jersey to get, and I kind of wanted Bobby. We talked about it the preseason, and that game was just sort of cemented for me. But I just want to give just a quick honourable mention, if you don't mind. I know this is non-script, lads, but can you just give a wee shout out to Jalen Hyatt as well? I mean, on 4 targets, he had 3 receptions for 21 yards, and that massive, crucial 4th down to keep that final drive alive. I mean, you could see on sort of like this game that they really were going with Slayton, Hyatt, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, you can see that these are the receivers that they trust the most. They invested in. They drafted the 2 young lads and re-signed Slayton. And I really hope these 3 can get some chemistry going and get some more targets, because I think these 3 could be sort of like the future of our wide receiving core. There
was a Shane, I don't know if you watched the Giants Insider podcast that was released today.
I was literally halfway through listening to it earlier on. I'm about 10 minutes in.
So there was something that they were kind of saying with Bobby O, where Chris was saying that he's been speaking to Bobby a lot in the locker room, and you know he has mentioned a few times that Bobby's kind of turned around to him and said, "Look, I'm still learning the playbook. Like, I'm still learning how I fit in this team, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I do when this person does this, and everything like that." And even Chris was saying, like, this was the game. This was the game where it all kind of came together for Bobby, and this is exactly why we signed him. And there'll be a lot of people out there who don't know what Bobby can do. They don't know what Okereke can do outside of the late hit on Jones last year and him being the best Colt on the field last year when we beat them. They wouldn't have watched any of his tape from anything else. You know, most fans will just see him on the pitch and that's it. So I do think that despite me choosing Robinson, he is the outstanding player. And as Dan rightly said, he's in the PFF team of the week. And I think it's well deserved. And another thing that Chris and Jerry both said were, you know, this is potentially the best we have seen since, what did you say, Kevin? Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce. They said it could even go back to Armstead. So
yeah, Jesse Armstead.
I mean,
yeah, they said that's probably the best performance they've seen from a Giants linebacker since then.
And can we just as well say, like, I know we might talk about it later, but what a BS call on that roughing the passer. That was a great quarterback hurry. And the ref's just unbelievable call. I was so unhappy when it was called. Oh. Anyway.
Shocker. Yeah, we'll come on to that later, Kev. But just lastly on Okereke, like it's been brewing for him this season, I think. And this like we said, right, this game was his breakout game. And one play for him stands out. That goal line stand, I think, where he tackled James Cook for I think it was a 1 or 2 yard loss. He just burst through the offensive line. Him and Dexter Lawrence brought him down, and it was just a stellar play for a fantastic linebacker. And I'm so glad we got him on the squad, and I'm sure Wink is as well. Shane, unfortunately, that means the bad is with you. What went wrong?
Yeah, so
here we go.
As much as we had the good stuff, we got to talk about the bad stuff.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yeah, just, you know, you get to listen to my dulcet tones for about 5 or 10 minutes. Look at you guys. You know, it was another game without an offensive touchdown. We've not had an offensive touchdown since week 2 against the Cardinals, which, you know, for any offence is shite. For an offence in the year 2023 is even worse. But you know, when you look at the opportunity that we did have, it just makes it kind of 10 times worse. And we had 5 trips to the red zone against the Bills. However, only walked away with 9 points from 3 field goals. The last trip we'll get into kind of a little bit later on, but the first one was arguably the worst of the two from an offensive standpoint. So from what Daves has said, the play that Tyrod was given was a play action, which to me makes sense. You know, you fake the handoff to the Saquon, the Bills D is going to hopefully bite down on it, and then you got people opening the end zone. For whatever stupid, ridiculous reason, Tyrod thought, "Oh no, better," and I'm going to call an audible at the line of scrimmage and hand the ball to Saquon, which I'm going to come on to in a second on something I've noticed on tape. Now, on one hand, handing the ball to 26 at the 1 yard line is normally fine. You know, most would say you get the ball into the hands of your best player, but not when there's 14 seconds left on the clock with no timeouts. And more so when you've brought the likes of Darren Waller in and you've drafted Jalen Hyatt and Wandale and Slayton to target. You know, you got to look at throwing there. If there's nothing open, you throw it away. The first thing you're told is don't take a sack. That is the first thing he would have been told. Do not take a sack. And to be, he shouldn't even need to be told. He should know better. He's a seasoned veteran at the end of the day. You know, I'll be honest. If Daniel Jones did this, he would have been absolutely slaughtered over it. Let's be honest. He 100% would have. So, you know, Tyrod's not protected from any criticism. But, you know, you throw it away, stop the clock, and you can reassess it. It gives the coaches then as well time to sort of work out, okay, what's the Bills D do? You know, this is a Bills D that's leading the league in sacks. So, you know, they're probably going to send a couple of things to you that you might not be expecting. So you've got, like, say, 2, even 3 attempts. But also, if you watch that play back, so it's first, was it first and goal? I can't remember. But whatever it was from the 1 yard line. But when you watch the game back, because of the way the play develops, Saquon gets the ball at the 5 yard line. So Saquon's not got 1 yard to get. Excuse me. Saquon's actually got 5 yards to get, which is a big ask when you think about it. You know, 5 yards to get. And me and Kev, as I said, we were watching it, and straight away before the play, the snap happened, me and Kev said, this is a run. Now, if 2 British lads at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning can work out that it's a run play, Irish. But, you know, if 2 lads at 2 in the morning can work out it's going to be a run play that are on the other side of the pond, then what do you think the Bills D are going to do? That they know it's going to be a run play as well. So, you know, throwing the fact that it was from the 5 yard line makes it even worse. But, you know, Tyrod said he thought he could get up and spike the ball before the half. Okay, that's fair enough, but there was zero urgency. There was absolute no urgency to get up and clock that ball to stop the clock running. And, you know, you could obviously see as well that Brian Dable was clearly pissed off at Tyrod Taylor as they were sort of walking down towards the tunnel at half time. So that's the bad on the offense side of the ball. Now, defensively, like I said, there was some great stuff. It's probably the best we've seen this D perform this season, hands down. However, we still can't defend the run. And for a team that supposedly made loads of signings in off-season to focus on the run, bringing in the likes of Raheem Nunez-Roches and Ashawn Robinson, you know, it looks like, probably even looks even worse than it was, in all honesty. You know, against the run, the Giants' defense front was shocking. Dexter Lawrence, he was missed massively. Me and Kev both noted it, that when he was out, there was one particular play, I don't know if Kev can record it, but they ran it, and I think they got about 6.5 yards. The very next play, Dexter was in, and it was shut down for about maybe 2. So, you know, we don't want to keep relying on Dex, but it seems like that's what we are doing. And I just don't get where this supposed better run defense was to come in. You know, the Bills ended the night with 128 yards on the ground at 4.7 yards per attempt. That's not an improved run D, in my opinion. And then the other main gripe of the penalties that we had, and there was a few that was a little bit dubious. We had 13 on the night. 5 of them were declined, but we're going to ignore the 3 that were called on Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, and Kayvon Thibodeau. But although this is the bad section, that deserves to be in the good section. For weeks, I've been saying I want to see some fight from this team.
Fight.
Literally, I want to see some passion. I want to see some dedication. And when Dex comes in and just wipes that offensive tackle out, you see the offensive tackle walking off the field, shaking his head. He's saying, "Shit, I ain't doing that again." Like, that's what I've been asking for. And like, if
I just got my ass handed to me.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Dex. It was like what you watch the play back. You've got I think it's Deontay Vance is trying to pull Thibodeau out of it. Then you got Leo Williams involved. Bobby Okereke is there, and Josh Allen comes and tries to have it off with him, which fair play to Josh Allen. But it's just something that
he's got some minerals on him, isn't he?
It's just something.
The guy that was over Thibodeau, though, you didn't see like, because the camera panned away, but after the camera panned away, he absolutely launched, like he pushed his foot into him and absolutely launched him like 5 yards away from him, and he went flying back and landed on his back. The guy that stood over Thibodeau, pretty much like trying to beat down on him, I thought should have been ejected from the game, because you're taking advantage of a defenseless person on the ground there. Sorry.
Did you see? Speaking of taking advantage of a defensive person on the ground, did you see Leo Williams pull his punch? So as he's pushed whoever it is, he's over him like this, and I was like, "Oh, Leo, don't come on, son."
And then he goes,
it in.
Nah.
Yeah, he just walks off like, "Whoops."
But the last thing I'll say is, like, if it's me, if I'm either Brian Dable or I'm Bobby Johnson or I can't remember our D-line's coach now, I'm getting them two groups together, and I'm saying to the D-line, teach these fuckers how to fight, because none of the O-line have got any fight in them, and that's just the one thing I want to say. I don't want to see ejections. Don't get me wrong. I just want to see protection. Like was it week 1 or week 2 when was it DJ Davidson got absolutely wiped out and nobody did anything? And it's kind of like the D-line of that personally said, I don't know if I said it, but I kind of felt like it was a case of that happens in a game again this season. We've got each other's back, and that was what was great to see.
There was a couple of plays where there were offensive players who were doing it, and I just want to give a shout out to Glowinski on this. So there was the play where Barkley, I think, got blown up on a run, and he was on the floor, slamming his hands down. He wasn't happy, and Glowinski kind of went over, picked him up. But there was also a play where one of the Bills was getting a bit chippy with Bredesen, and Glowinski got in there straight away, pushed him away from Bredesen, and just kind of walked Bredesen away. And that is what we're looking for now. Obviously, Glowinski's not doing it on the same level as what the three defensive players did, but there was a little hint of kind of pride in each other, and I just want to see that grow. And that will be something that Pugh will pick up on and try and instill in the offense, that they just need to have a bit of pride in their work and just stand up for each other. Get nasty if you need, like you said, get nasty if you need to, but just there's a line. Just be careful of where the line is.
Players to try to get ejected and start throwing punches and doing it in Eric Cantona kicks and everything. But you just want to see that kind of action.
I'm all for
He's my guy. Get away from my guy.
I'm all for Eric Cantona. Come on. Let's do it.
Yeah, but do you think that's got something to do with the fact that like our O-line's been so chopped and changed all season? Like, it'd be so nice to get a run of games with the same five like playing together.
Yeah, it looks like it was just nice to just finally see. But sort of wrapping up the bad, obviously Tyrod Taylor, he's appeared in the good section and the bad sections from what we've discussed. Overall, it was an improvement. So Dan, I'll fire this way, your way first, then we'll get Craig and then Kev. But I know it's a conversation we've kind of loosely had in our group chat. How would you feel about Tyrod taking over long term if Daniel Jones is also out longer than what we maybe anticipate?
I think, like I said at the start, I think the offense just looked a bit calmer and a bit sort of more relaxed, and just like with the fight on the offensive line, sort of almost like it was a more cohesive unit with Tyrod on the center. I mean, I don't know if that was just me or not. I don't know, but I just thought it just looked a bit more of a I don't know. It just everything sort of seemed to go quite well and gel. Granted, we didn't score many points, but it just seemed to sort of gel a bit more. And I think until DJ is fully healthy, and I mean, who knows how long that's going to take. You don't want to risk putting him in there with a neck injury and potentially making it even worse, especially with obviously the struggles we've had on the O-line. So there's no harm in starting Tyrod for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, even longer. If it means Dan Jones going on IR for 4 weeks just to rest and recuperate, then so be it, because Tyrod is absolutely serviceable, and we saw that on Sunday. He didn't have the best game, but he's passed for 200 yards, and he wasn't scared to throw the deep ball either, which I was quite not surprised by, but I was quite happy with the fact that he wasn't scared to throw a deep ball every now and again, because this is what this team needs. It's what this offense needs. We need to start scoring points. And the only way you're going to start scoring points is by, chunk plays. We've seen far too many of them against us this season so far. So we need to start getting some of those chunk plays on our offense, and not this just dink dunk, 2, 3, 4, 5 yards of reception. Let's get a 20, 30, 40, 50 yard reception. And I don't think Tyrod's scared to do that. So yeah, I don't see the problem in starting Tyrod for the next few weeks, to be honest.
I agree, and I've got to hold my hands up. The joys of a podcast is that somebody can go back and watch previous podcasts and see what we say about people, and then come onto it. And I'm more than happy to turn around and say that I was wrong. Last week I said that I wasn't overly enamoured with having Tyrod in there. I think he's a bit of a maverick. I still think he's a bit of a maverick. Maybe the tendencies that he showed when he stepped into for DJ in previous times are more of a excitement to play that he didn't have, because he knew he was starting and knew that he was likely to get the entire game as long as he didn't injure himself. And maybe that took a point there as well. So I'll hold my hand up. Tyrod played very, very well. It wasn't perfect. I think there was something that was shared into the group chat earlier that was kind of like a Twitter thread from Anthony Rivaldo. And there was just one thing on there that kind of stood out to me. I think it was one of the last few comments he made that was like, Daniel Jones is the better quarterback with a higher ceiling if he had a great offensive line and elite playmakers. But Tyrod is better suited to the system we are currently playing because he sees the field well while pressured and gets the ball out of his hands quick. And that's it. That's exactly it. I do think Jones is a much better quarterback than Tyrod. I just think situationally, Tyrod's kind of what we need right now until we can get an offensive line that's settled. And I am not risking Daniel Jones behind an offensive line that's not settled, because we've seen what can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And you think, he looked a lot. Like I said, one point I wanted to make, he looked a lot calmer under pressure. He was pressured the same amount as Daniel Jones was. Look at the stats, and it was 46% Daniel Jones been pressured on his dropbacks. Tyrod Taylor's pressured on 43% of his dropbacks. So he's still being pressured on the same amount of dropbacks, but he just looked a lot calmer and a lot more sort of calculated and just not in any sort of panic. Whereas DJ's looks like a completely different player compared to what he was last year. But one thing I wanted to add as well, Dave's made it clear in his presser that DJ, when he is healthy, is the starter, and I completely get it. We're paying him $40 million a year, and the owners won't be happy to see him sitting on the bench if they're paying him that much money. So I completely get that. But what this does prove is that we don't need to rush DJ back, as we've got that experienced backup that, yeah, he might not win us every game and he might not set the world on fire, but hopefully, touch wood, got Washington coming up this weekend. Hopefully we actually score some points and we can actually maybe even get a win as well. So, what do you reckon, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we signed him and why he's one of the better paid backups in this league. If you see some of the backup quarterback play in this league, it's atrocious. It's awful. I think, Tyrod comes in, he's sort of he excels in chaos. He loves a bit of chaos. He's able to move around, extend plays. But also, I think one of the big things is I think Daniel Jones, with that offensive line, played with fear. And I think Tyrod Taylor comes in and plays without fear, plays fearless. He just comes in, he's a savvy vet, and I think, Daniel Jones is by far the starter, obviously. If we can get no line settled, then, Daniel Jones will be the better player. I kind of hope this type of game shows Daniel Jones, look, just go out and play your game as well. Just go out, the offensive line is not going to be perfect. But look what Tyro was able to get a bit of a functioning offense, that you can do that too. So, will he start ahead of Jones if Jones is fit? No. Is it good to have him in because he kind of gives you a chance? Because that's what he did at the weekend, on Sunday night. He gave us a chance to be in a game. It was in our hands to win that game. And that's all you can ask for when you play a team like the Bills.
Yep. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. The game was in our hands. It came down to that final drive. And, we'll kind of cover that in a minute. But, yeah, I just think Tyrod, he's got his critics, but I think for the time being, whilst Daniel Jones is injured, we're not gonna complain about him starting a game. I think why risk DJ if his neck's not right. So right, we've heard the good, we've heard the bad. What time does that make it? What the Feagles? Indeed.
I love that. I love that.
I mean, who doesn't love Tom Coughlin, right? What the Feagles. And this week, unfortunately, for the second time this season, our What the Feagles section belongs to the men and women in black and white. That's the referees. Firstly, the Evan Neal being flagged as an ineligible receiver downfield, despite him pretty much being on the line of scrimmage as Tyrod threw that deep ball to Jalen Hyatt.
What a catch that was.
Oh, what a catch. And, huge 43-yard gain, which would have put the Giants in Buffalo territory. However, the Giants went 3 and out. I mean, bullshit call number one. Next was the disgraceful roughing the passer call on Bobby Okereke, which you mentioned earlier, Kev. A few plays before the interception in the second half. I'm still really not sure what the ref saw. His hands were high, but he didn't touch Allen in the head. And even Terry McCauley on NBC, their rules analysis and rules analyst, said it wasn't roughing the passer. Like, it was never a roughing the passer call. So why that was flagged, I don't know. Bullshit call number 2. And then lastly, I mean, ending the game, the final play, Tyrod passes to Darren Waller in the end zone. Defensive pass interference called on Terrell Bernard. Right call. Was DPI? Never a doubt. We then get the untimed down to end the game. So we get an extra play. We get the free play. We're thinking we're going to win the game on the last play of the game. Get in. Tyrod looks at Waller in the end zone, and his jersey is being held so much. He was pretty much undressed before he got in the end zone. And then the ball goes up in the air, and what was it? Is it Taron Johnson, the cornerback for the Bills?
Good player.
His arms are all. He's a great player, but his arms are all up in his face, and I mean, how that wasn't defensive pass interference, I do not know, because he was holding on to Darren Waller's arm. It was so blatant that I think it came down to the fact that they don't call 2 in a row, and that obviously came from the beat writers, and unfortunately, it seems true. But when it's so blatantly obvious and it affects the result of the game on the final play, it's absolute bullshit. What were you going to say, Kev?
Just going to say, I can't call BS on that. This sort of narrative of, you're never going to get 2 in a row called. But if it is what it is what it is. I mean, if the ball crosses breaks the play in, they're not going to go, well, you scored a touchdown last drive, so we won't give you this one. Do you know what I mean? It's like, just because you got one before, should next play mentality, move on. And that goes for players and referees. Regardless of what happened on the previous play, you play that play, you watch that play, you referee that play like it's a brand new play, like nothing's happened in the past. So when I hear this, and I've heard it in every single outlet, I've seen it in beat writers, I've heard it in podcasts, I've seen it on Twitter saying, oh, well, they were never going to get the second. Why? I really
Why
don't
not?
understand this. So,
Exactly.
like, what
Why
culture
not?
is this when you can? What culture is when you can accept inept, awful officiating like that, bordering on cheating? Like,
So
I just don't understand it.
If we put that in terms of our football, say a defender fouls a striker in the penalty box, goes down, stonewall penalty gets given. 5 minutes later, exact same tackle, and it's not given. That would never, ever happen. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. So why this happens in the NFL, I do not know. I mean, Jamie and Steve, you both make fantastic points. Steve, the comment was off screen. God forbid the NFL have the Bills, Eagles, and Niners lose on the same day. Now, if this is the Kansas City Chiefs, and if this is Patrick Mahomes passing to Travis Kelce to win the game,
Oh, it's cold.
It's called every single fucking time, every time. So bullshit, absolute bullshit. What was the referee's name? Tony Mikulak, I think his name was. You and your crew, what the Feagles, man, because that was a fucking awful call. There has been a lot of focus on it. So what are you? I mean, Kev, you've given your opinion. Shane, what do you reckon? What do you think about it?
I've got an opinion of like it is what it is. The Giants didn't lose this game because of calls. That people can argue about the ref, but it wasn't because of the ref. You know, the refs had nothing to do with Tyrod calling the audible. The refs had nothing to do with, he's not been called out on it that I've really heard of. But Brian Dable's piss poor game management at times during Sunday night. You know, we opted to. Did we kick the field goal on? I think we're on 4th and inches in the Bills' end, and we went for the field goal, I think. And it was like, that's a 4th down play all day long. You know, leading up to the incident that happened at half time with the failed 1 yard attempt. We used our timeouts really poorly. I mean, there was even a shot at one point where the camera cuts to Brian Dable, the play clock's running down, and I think he waits till there's 30 seconds left on the play clock before calling the timeout. Like, that's not the ref's fault that we didn't have that urgency. And then the one that really annoyed me and Kev, because we spoke about it whilst we were watching, we had to call a timeout, and then we were this close to having a delay of game out of a timeout, but we actually had illegal movement on one day, I think it was. Again, our game management was really, really bad, and our clock management was really, really poor. So, the end call, was it bullshit? Yeah, it was. But the roughing the passer call, but there was 2 flags on that play, and called our flock got done for hands to the face. So either way, we were giving up 15 yards, no matter what, because if you don't want to call the roughing the passer, called out for lots getting done for hands to the face. So there's a penalty there, irrespective. It doesn't matter. And for me, I just think that we didn't lose this game because of the refs. Yeah, there were some poor decisions, but you know what? You could maybe say we got away with a couple early on as well, a couple of pass interferences. I know there was one where it was clearly just a coming together, but I think there was one very early on probably could have been called against us. It happens.
Yeah, it was Deontay Banks, wasn't it?
Banks.
Banks.
Yeah.
So, it's just unfortunate for us that the big one we had was at the very end of the game when there was no time left. But it is what it is at the end of the day. And for me,
I know, but we need a win so bad, Shane. Like so bad.
That's the thing. At this point in time, if you can,
we need to win.
Take a win anyway.
We're not going to look back and go, no, you know what? We might have been Super Bowl bound if we'd have had that play against the Rams.
I know, but a win's better than a loss. Come on.
Oh, 100%. But just for me, we didn't lose because of the refs, in my opinion.
I know, but you can still be pissed at it.
Oh, yeah, you could be pissed at it, but, I've heard people saying, we lost because of the refs. No, we didn't. Sorry, we didn't. We lost because of that.
Yeah, it's
I
an entire game.
Agree with you on that, Shane.
Waller would have come down with that ball, I reckon.
That's the reason we brought him in.
Waller would have come down. I think as well, if you actually think about it, if the ball was slightly lower, he definitely catches it.
Regardless,
it didn't have to be that high. I know you're putting it that high because you've bought, you've signed Waller to make those kind of catches up high. His height kind of plays into that a little bit, but you could have thrown it lower, and I think he probably curtails it in. There's a distinct difference between sort of way up high and maybe trying to one hand something more sort of in line with where the head is. But But I am in agreement with what Shane's saying. What did Dable say at the end? You don't get trophies for trying.
Yeah,
you don't get trophies for trying.
It felt like to me during that game, we were playing not to lose rather than playing to win. Whereas last year we were going into games and we were playing to win, the fourth down calls and that. And I don't know what it is, whether it's there's no confidence in the offense at the minute, but it just feels like, especially on something like we played not to lose rather than playing to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was something that I'm going to go back to Giants Insider, but Biz just makes the best points, and it kind of just makes sense. In training camp, do you remember we saw all of these Waller dummy, Bellinger sneak out kind of routes? If we run that on that last play, we get a touchdown. That's exactly what Chris said, and I have to agree with it. If you run that play, nobody's looking for Bellinger. Everyone's looking at Waller. And you could see that this Bills defense were biting on certain things from play one. I'm going to take it all the way back to play one. But the first offensive play we ran, it was a fake handoff to Barkley. The defense all went Barkley's way. Just every single person went Barkley's way. So it was obvious that the Bills were looking for the playmakers. And if Kafka was, I don't want to say smarter, but just more savvy in the moment, he could have quite easily, or ballsy. Yeah, ballsy's a good word for it. He could have easily, found something that potentially was better than, Waller contested catch at the back.
Yeah, it's. I mean, as disappointing as it was, and as rightly so, there's been a lot of talk about, we were robbed on that last play. Like, I agree with what you're saying, Shane. We should have won that game before that last play. They shouldn't have come down to that last play. And for me, like the biggest mess up was on the last play of the first half. We're not going to go into it anymore because we already covered it, but that alone is, you just got to look at what happened there. And then for then coach to start berating Tyrod as they're walking down the sideline, I thought that was a little bit out of order. To be perfectly honest with you, granted, obviously,
just shaking my head. I get it. I get why Dable's done it, because you just get it. But if I think there's a distinct difference between don't berate your quarterback until it's closed doors, and your quarterback has just called an audible on an absolute shocking decision when you run the ball, when you don't run the ball.
But was that one of the plays that was given to him in his helmet, or was that a full-on audible, like he's made that decision? He's admitted to change the play at the line?
No, Tyrod's admitted it, that he completely changed the play to a run play. It was supposed to be a pass. He called an audible.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's a rookie mistake, let's be honest.
Yeah, it is. But I mean,
you have to score. You have to score.
Yeah, the fact that Dave's are so pissed coming off at halftime that he doesn't even give a comment to the sideline reporter as well is kind of goes to show that he wasn't very happy about that.
I think Tynes put a post up saying, "God forbid someone shouts at you as you're coming off the sideline," and put a video up of Coughlin screaming at him. And Brandon Jacobs commented on it as well. I think he was saying what Coughlin was probably saying to Tynes. But, I think a lot of the players are just like, yeah, you take it. You just take it. I think that there is a distinct difference between, obviously, what a player would think about something like this and what we as fans think about it, because there's a very distinct difference about what's going on.
True.
I've got a bonus one. I know it's already an hour and 5 minutes in, but we'll try and keep it quick. Thank you to everyone who's kind of sticking with us throughout all of this. We know it's a long one, and the comments are going crazy, so thank you for that as well. Trade deadline is 2 weeks today. Who is the most likely to be traded if the Giants start dealing assets? Shane.
This follows the same topic. I've just seen that Ryan Dunleavy's tweeted something out. Nothing too urgent or anything, but Bates just said that at the owners' meeting today, Mara and Tish didn't talk at all. He says an unidentified man, he's never seen him around the Giants, ushered Mara to the meetings and said to reporters, "What do you guys have to talk about?" And apparently the unidentified man ushering John Mara away was the 49ers owner. So are they maybe having a little chat about, who is this guy available? Is that guy available? So it just shows that, kind of the teams are very well having these conversations, even as we chat about it. But I think for me, I'm probably going for a little bit of a surprising one, but not surprising. It's not surprising because he's been shit, but maybe surprising because there's other options. But I'm going to go for Darnay Holmes. He's someone who took a pay cut to stay on the team. I don't know why, because he's doing nothing. He's just utter wank at the minute, let's be honest with you. I mean, there was a noticeable improvement for me when this past weekend. So for me, I'd be looking at Darnay Holmes. Hopefully you can maybe get a third round pick, which is what we got for him. Probably more like a fifth or sixth, though.
Dan.
Darnay Holmes is a good shout. I mean, another defensive back who's not really done much this season, Adoree Jackson. There you go, Jamie. Me and you on the same wavelength. What's he done? He's Say again?
I thought you was going to get me kiddie when you said a defensive back. Done nothing.
I mean, him as well. Those two. They're both defensive captains. Well, you need to prove that you're a captain, and so far you've both been pretty damn awful. So, I mean, yeah, I think for me, Adoree closely followed by McKinney.
Kev?
I'm going to keep this nice and short because I know Steve's got a flight to New Torque in the morning. So
New Torque.
New Torque. So
NYT, baby.
So I go Paris Campbell. He was my darling in the off season, and I love the acquisition, but it just hasn't really done much this season. Like I think Craig said earlier, catches the ball and drops to the floor instead of fighting for those extra yards. I mean, his snap count, Shane got me some details earlier, has gone from 47, 45, 21, 23, 16 and 0 this past week. So he's obviously not in the plans. So do you try and ship him for a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick or something?
So I hate to say this because I'm probably going to end up wearing his legacy jersey at the weekend, but it's the only legacy jersey I've got. There you go, big cat, Leonard Williams, as Jamie said. I think in order to do it, we'd have to swallow a lot of money, but potentially that might be the way the cookie crumbles. Jordan Riley could jump in. We do have Robinson and Nacho who potentially could jump in as well. Might just need to, like a Karake, just to get a few more kind of reps just to get used to the cadence and get used to everything on the defense. So it's a possibility. There was one thing that I saw kind of doing the rounds on Twitter earlier that I'm not a fan of, which was Slayton to the Chiefs. I'm not a fan of that at all.
Paris Campbell to the Chiefs now.
Yeah. Steve's just said something and I'm going to upset Shane.
Oh. The thing is, lads, just quickly as well, like, we've got 2 games between now and the deadline. That's the Washington Commanders and the New York Jets. Now,
we have to.
I think we have to win both those games. But if, God forbid, we end up losing those games, or winning one and losing one, then you might see some of these players move. Especially if we lose 2 games, you've got a couple of days before the window closes, and we might see some changes.
I mean, I'm sure Shane won't be too disheartened if Paris Campbell goes, because that means the number 0's off our roster, right?
Happy days.
Oh yeah.
If not very well,
You're on.
Not commenting on this.
Yeah, get rid of number 0. Get rid of number 0. All right, Steve, we know you've got a flight to catch, so we're going to wrap it up. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for this evening. We'll be back at the same time on Thursday evening as we preview our Week 7 clash with the Commanders in our first legacy game of the season. So make sure you tune in then 8:30 on Thursday evening. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
No, just great chatting tonight. Obviously, we'll be back talking about Washington some more, and obviously our meetup, which all 4 of us are going to be there. All 4 of us are looking forward to.
Yeah, fantastic. Like, let's just put this behind us now. We move on to the next week. We'll have a chat about the game, and very much looking forward to the meetup.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait for that. That's going to be really good. We've got some really good numbers now. People are really starting to get interested in it. The bar allowing us to hopefully decorate the place accordingly. And it's going to be a good game against two sides who aren't doing as well. And we'll go through that hopefully on Thursday night, and we can see what we think. Steve's put, have a great weekend, lads. Steve, enjoy the game as much as you can. I know you're out there for it, so make sure that you enjoy it as much as you possibly can. And if you could return with a W, that would be great. Thank you very much.
It would be fantastic. Yeah, happy 40th, Steve. Hope you have a great weekend at MetLife. Enjoy the game, and for sure, let's hope we come back with that dub. I know there's a couple of questions asked by Steve and Jamie earlier on the pod. We apologise we haven't got to them. We're an hour and 10 minutes in, so we're a bit wary of the time. But we'll pop them up on our Twitter page. We'll answer those questions for you on there. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell to get latest notifications and updates of when we're going, all the times we go live. Check out usasports.co.uk. Use the code BIGBLUE to get 15% off, as I said earlier, and head over to our Etsy shop as well, etsy.com/BigBlueUKIRL to get your hands on some podcast merch. This time last season, lads, we were 5-1 and doing really, really well. This season, we're 1-5. And we're not doing so well. What a difference a year makes, eh? My thanks as ever go to Shane, to Kev, and to producer Craig for joining me, and to the viewers and listeners for tuning in. We're signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.